Hello people, and welcome to Crypto Exposed. What if banks say no to XRP? Here's why XRP still wins without Wall Street. Okay guys, let's get into it. Okay, so I thought I'd cover this because there was a recent video that I'd done, and it was covering the thoughts of Tom Zach, I believe his surname is, who was a CTO with Swift, and he basically called XRP a dead chain, and I did a whole thing about why a lot of what he was saying was basically just inaccurate. I'm not saying that everything that he said was incorrect. He did have some valid points, but there were some things that he was saying that was just demonstrably false, basically. And this was the main point that I made with regards to this anyway, when he made this whole argument, because it's something that I thought straight away when he said this. He's like, his whole thing was about why he doesn't think that banks will want to use XRP, basically. And one of the things that I said in that video was, even if banks choose not to use XRP, that isn't the be all and end all for XRP. And that's where I was like so kind of dumbfounded by his response, because he was calling it a dead chain. It's like, XRP is a top 3 cryptocurrency. XRP went through a lawsuit and managed to stay within the top 10 and regain its top 3 cryptocurrency status. If that doesn't show you resilience, then I don't know what will. And if that doesn't show you that XRP isn't a dead chain, I don't know what will. And so what's the deal here in regards to this? The reason why they're saying this is because basically there's a lot more use cases to XRP than just cross-border payments. And this is something I've been saying to you guys for a long time, even in terms of Ripple. Like, well, don't get me wrong, it's great to have Ripple on side. They're a huge, powerful company, huge developer to the XRP ledger and ecosystem. Don't just focus on Ripple. They are just developers when it's all said and done. There are other developers out here creating use cases for XRP too. And so don't just hang on exactly everything that Ripple do, because like when it's all said and done, Ripple could go away. I don't think they will, because they're so big. They've got so much money at this point, but you don't know what could happen. So I don't just focus on Ripple solely for the success of XRP. I look at XRP as a whole, as an ecosystem as a whole, and all other developers too. And so, when you look at the things that the XRP ledger can do, tokenization, the AMM, the stablecoin, right? The DEX, the decentralized exchange, all these things that XRP has, like, these are all huge things that can be used, and use cases can be built on the back of it, right? So when people are just focusing on cross-border payments solely for the success of XRP, to me it shows that you're not thinking big enough, right? And don't get me wrong, I do get it. Like, at the end of the day, Ripple really did go hard with the whole ODL thing. Like, that's really what they tried to proposition XRP for. So I do understand it, and it does sound like the most powerful use case. Oh, all these banks are going to use XRP as a bridge currency. I get the attraction there, and I get everybody really like, hanging on to that use case as the main thing. But when it's all said and done, even if ODL was to fail, which I don't think it will fail. Now, when I say fail, again, this can be subjective, right? The same way success can be objective. Some people might say, well, if not every bank in the world uses it, then it's a failure. I personally don't think that. I think that if Ripple was to get X percentage of banks using XRP, then that's a success, right? Because I don't believe that every bank in the world will use XRP anyway. I'm not under that kind of illusion. So for me, if it gets a percentage of banks using it, I would deem that to be a success, because it's clearly then a successful use case for some banks, right? But yeah, like, I don't just look at ODL as the be all and end all of XRP, and I don't think you guys should either. And this was one of my main arguments when I was saying this about what Tom Zach was saying. Now, from what I'm hearing, this was more like a troll response, because the XRP community was getting on his back, which, if that is the case, because I don't know the full context of it, then fair enough. I get it. If you're getting trolled and stuff and people are trying to say all this stuff, I get that you can probably get a bit annoying and stuff, and I know how the XRP community can get when it comes to this stuff, when it relates to banks and everything. Like, XRP always seems to get its way into the conversation. But putting that aside, at the end of the day, I don't think you should be calling it a dead chain. Like that's, it's a bit ridiculous to call it a dead chain. But yeah, to me, like this is why I say to you guys, look at XRP as a whole ecosystem. Don't just think about Ripple. Like at the end of the day, Ripple are great. Like it's great to have them on side, but Ripple being with us has also brought us a lot of criticism, right? Because that's why a lot of people think that XRP is centralized and they don't really like XRP because they call it the banker's coin and stuff like that. Now, look, as an adult, I don't really care about all that stuff because I know that doesn't really matter, and I can understand that the XRP ledger is still decentralized. But people have different opinions, right? People don't like that kind of thing. And so you've got to take the good with the bad. But for me, what I'm saying is the success of XRP isn't solely dependent on Ripple. It's just not. And I've never thought that. And as I said before, if you're thinking like that, then, this is what the SEC were talking about when they were saying that, people are looking at XRP as, really like dependent on Ripple, which is why they put the lawsuit through. So I think that's a bit incorrect in that type of thinking. But yeah, look, there's more to the success than just, ODL and Ripple. There is, like there's plenty of people who can, come up with new use cases of XRP that could be massively successful. If Ripple were to go away tomorrow, let's just say for whatever reason, hypothetically, Ripple was to go down tomorrow, the XRP ledger would still exist because it is decentralized. And there could be a new company that could try and, build on the XRP ledger, could try and take Ripple's place, build up their own version of ODL, etc., RippleNet and whatnot. Like they could try and fill their shoes and stuff, or they could come with a whole new use case for XRP that ends up becoming hugely successful and gets XRP popular again. So this is why I say, like, I don't just look at just one, proponent of XRP for its success. I look at it as a whole, and I think you guys should too. But this is why I'm saying for you guys, don't just hang your hat on XRP being utilized for ODL, because one, it's not realistic that all the banks are going to use it, but two, it doesn't have to be the case for it to be successful. It can still be successful without that. Now, for the people who've got their head in the clouds with the $10,000 stuff, then yeah, that's probably going to crush you for your dreams. But at the end of the day, if you've got the reality of just thinking, yes, this isn't going to be a thing that's got to be utilized everywhere by everybody, then you can have a bit more of a realistic outlook, and this doesn't have to sound like a negative. But that's down to, each individual's perspective. But for the guys who are a bit more down to earth like myself, this is, to me, like, and let me just be clear, I don't think all banks will say no to XRP. I don't think that's the case. I don't think all banks will say yes to XRP. I don't think that's the case either. I think there'll be a percentage, and that will be what it is. I think there'll probably be remittance firms that will like to use XRP. I think that could be beneficial. Individuals like retail, I think it could be beneficial for them because, again, like people who, for example, maybe using like Western Union and that kind of stuff where there's fees involved, could take a little bit longer to get the transfers over. They're probably going to want to use XRP rather than use, these money transfer companies. So there's alternatives there. So I still think that it can have its place in that regard as a bridge asset. But there's just so many other things to XRP anyway that I don't just look at that one thing. And that's the type of stuff that I've been trying to help you guys to understand it. Like, hey, look at the broader picture. Like, I'm not saying ODL's not good. It is. And if it can get broadly adopted, that's great. But look at the other stuff too. There's other great stuff that can be done on the XRP ledger. And we're seeing stuff like that now. We're hearing things that's going on right now. And you can see me covering that stuff. So just look at it as a whole, because everything adds value to the chain overall. So there's much more things to think about when you think about XRP success than just cross-border payments. And so I hope you guys do see that too, because I think we just need to start thinking a bit more bigger picture when it comes to XRP. And I think that will help you have a much better outlook about XRP regardless as well. Thank you very much for watching this. Please remember to like, comment, and subscribe. And hit that bell. Take care.